good today. Who made this? Very delicious. Hold on.
Hey, my cosmic cousins. I'm Nova Charm, and welcome to another episode of Astrology Tea with Nova Charm. On today's episode, we have got to talk about the Chiron Retrograde in Aries. Now, I don't know if y'all are aware or not, but this would be like the fifth planetary energy that we have in retrograde right now. I've already briefly discussed the Mercury retrograde in another one of my videos, and I'll share the link with that one down below. But, child, this energy has just been completely insane. But before we get too deep into it, go ahead and like and subscribe to your girl, and make sure you hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of this cosmic tea that I have to sip with you, okay? On today's episode, we're taking a look at the Chiron retrograde in Aries. Now, child, this retrograde energy is whipping our ass. I ain't even gonna hold you. This would be like the fifth planetary energy that we have in retrograde right now. And when I say it's just been insane, it's been insane is really just like an understatement for how it's been, honestly. But I don't want y'all to fret because I am here to give you the tea on how to maneuver through this crazy energy that we have going on right now. Now, to some of you who are new to astrology, you're probably asking yourself, what the hell is Chiron and what does this have to do with me? Well, Chiron is a placement in everybody's chart. Chiron is nicknamed the wounded healer. It is a part of us that we didn't really ask for the foolishness, but somehow we got the foolishness and it's just not going to go nowhere. So we have to figure out how to work through it. And that looks differently based on your house or your placement in everybody's chart. If you're still a little confused, let me give you a breakdown on the story of Chiron, and it'll kind of help you understand how this looks in our chart. Now, for starters, in astrology, Chiron is actually a celestial body. It is classified as both a comet and as a minor planet. Now, the deeper symbolic meaning for Chiron is actually a figure from Greek mythology. Now, the story of Chiron goes like this. This is the tea, okay? So, Chiron was what they called a centaur. Now, a lot of the centaurs they was wild and unruly, and they loved to have a good time, but they would just kick it a little bit too hard. They would get real crazy, okay? It'd be like if you go to a hood party and you stay too late, after a while it just starts to get just like crazy and you like, nah, I should have went home a long time ago. Okay, that's how the centaurs would act, especially after they've been drinking wine. Chiron wasn't really like that though. You know what I'm saying? He was a little bit more wise, gentle. He was a healer. He was a teacher. He tried to tell him a few things. You know what I'm saying? And he was a mentor to a lot of the Greek heroes. One of which that you've probably heard of was Hercules. Now, there's a few different versions of how Chiron was wounded or who he was wounded by. In this case, we just gonna rock with the Hercules story because we all know Hercules. I think we've all heard of him. He's from the Disney movies and such. Now, before you trip out and say, what? Hercules shot Chiron. It really wasn't like that. It was an accident, okay? So one day Hercules had popped by Chiron's cave. Like, what's up, player? And Chiron was happy to see him, like, oh, what's up with you? So he opened some of his sacred wine and they started drinking. Now, this did attract some of the rowdier centauruses that, was in the neighborhood that came through. Now, Hercules wasn't feeling this. He was like, nah, player, I can't get with this. And so Hercules and some of the centauruses started beefing and a fight broke out. Now, we all know that Hercules is strong, okay? Not just strong, strong. And his archery skills be on point too. And his arrows happen to be dipped with this poisonous blood of Hydra. That's a whole nother story. But anyways, he had poisonous blood on his arrows, okay? So while he popping people with them arrows like fat, 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 one of them arrows accidentally struck Chiron. Now Chiron, he wasn't even in the battle. He was just chilling on the sideline. But ain't that how it goes? It's always the one who ain't got nothing to do with nothing that always end up getting hurt or something happening to it. That's why y'all gotta stay out the way, okay? Now, this is so devastating because it was coated with this venom that causes this excruciating pain, right? And then on top of that, the pain is incurable. Now, I didn't even tell y'all that Chiron is immortal, so he can't even die from the wound. But because this was a wound that just can't heal, he's just doomed to just live in suffering eternally, just doomed to just eternally suffer with this wound. Like on some real, that is messed up. Like he ain't have nothing to do with nothing, and now he gotta live with this wound for the rest of his life. And that's just how that goes. Now, the story of Chiron actually ends at some point he chose to give up his mortality to save another Greek god who was being eternally punished by the other gods. Okay, so he wanted him to be free, and because the guys was like cool with Chiron, they was like, okay, we'll honor that. And then they ended up placing him and freeing him and putting him among the stars as a constellation called Centaurus. Once he became a constellation, he became a part of all of us. So the symbolism with this placement in astrology, he was a known healer who did not have the ability to heal himself. He suffered not because of anything that he did, but just by fate and by accident. And even though he was in a place of suffering, he still chose to serve others and be a guide. Even still, he was still a wise teacher to others through it all. Now, this wound serves as a metaphor of a core wound that's in all of us that just may never go away. But through that wound, we gain compassion, wisdom, and power to actually help others. So, the key theme of this placement is the core wound that never heals, healing through experience and helping others, turning that pain into wisdom, and then using that wisdom to be a guide, mentor, or a therapist for others that may have that similar pain. Now, as I mentioned before, Chiron is currently in Aries, and how this affects Aries is it is the wound of self. It's the wound around your identity, your confidence, and your courage. It talks about the wound of existing as you are. Aries is the sign of self, the warrior, the initiator, the go getter. And with this sign here, it kind of creates an energy of not feeling safe, of instability, and not feeling worthy of self. It's like, I don't feel like I'm enough unless I prove it. So that energy is going on right now, but it's currently in retrograde. So, how that plays out in retrograde is, of course, it's definitely taking a deeper dive into self and revisiting wounds that affect your overall self and how you view yourself. Chiron in retrograde already gives a internal retrospect of emotional wounds and patterns that you may have of avoidance and what you can do to begin or even deepen your healing process from the inside out. By that being in Aries, it just really focuses more on self than ever because of what Aries represents. I mean, you may not even have noticed it, but this retrograde is probably bringing up thoughts for you of like old identity wounds. Like, who am I if I am not achieving or winning? You might even be having some tests right now with your confidence. And to be honest, with this Mercury in retrograde being in Leo, that's not helping either. Like, that has a lot to do with that as well. So there's a really strong emphasis on this, on am I being strong enough or am I worthy? Another thing that this retrograde could be stirring up for you right now is suppressed anger or even some shame around how you have been asserting truth. This time is probably even giving you some flashbacks, or there's probably like some emotion that are resurfacing from childhood. If you were one of those precious children that were told that you were too much or maybe not enough, those wounds are definitely coming up for you right now, and you're probably feeling yourself thinking about those moments a lot more at this moment. This is definitely not the time, though, to let that get the best of you. What you are actually meant to do during this time is slow down. Stop trying to fix yourself through action. When this stuff comes up, sometimes you just have to sit with it. And I know it's not a comfortable feeling, but sometimes with sitting with it comes a different perspective. Just take that time to do some breathing exercises and understand this is a part of the process. This is a moment or opportunity for you to reclaim your inner child. This is that child version of you that is brave, bold, and full of spirit. This is the version of you that believed that every and anything was possible before the world told you that it wasn't, or before the world told you to tone it down or be quiet and all that good stuff. You know, we've all been there. So take this opportunity to reclaim that inner child and reparent that child. Give that child the opportunity to fully express themselves the way that they deserve to be heard. This is also a great time for you to observe your triggers. If someone says something and you somehow feel small behind something that they said, this is a perfect opportunity to try and figure out why that hurt or why that made you feel that way. Why does that sting so bad? Why does that hurt? Only by addressing it can it be healed. Just like physical wounds, emotional wounds have to be tended to as well. If you cut yourself, you would make sure that you did what you needed to do to address it. You would get bandages or band-aids. You would get some neosporin if you needed it. You would do what you needed to do to make sure that it healed correctly. So you have to do that for yourself emotionally as well. Another thing that this energy kind of brings out is the perfect time to rewrite your story. This is the perfect time to shift your narrative from I am a broken individual to I am a healed individual, or even a healing individual. You have to know that you are perfect the way that you are, even with your scars. Your scars is not what makes you incomplete. It all depends on how you feel about you. So this is your story. You can write it the way that you want to. Just know your scars is what makes you the ideal perfection. My favorite saying is, I am perfectly me. And that has nothing to do with anybody else's idea of what perfection looks like. Now, this is also a time where you want to forgive yourself. In the past, we've all had moments where we felt like we weren't strong enough, or maybe we should have stood up for ourselves a little bit more. Sometimes we sit with that regret. Understand that you did your best for what you knew at that time, and stop beating yourself up. Now, Aries do have a lot of fight energy. And when you're dealing with self, sometimes you could be beating yourself up a lot with some of these decisions. Don't let that affect you, and don't do it to yourself, okay? Now, to help get you through this time, I did put together some questions that you can kind of journal down during this Chiron retrograde in Aries. And through these questions, it will kind of help you out a little bit and helping you understand how to navigate all of this. Now, as always, get your pen and pad and get ready. The first question that I want you to ask yourself is, what part of myself do I feel that I've hid to be accepted by others? And really be honest with yourself when you're asking yourself this. Literally, nobody is going to see this but you. So, yeah. The next question that I want you to ask yourself is, when did I first feel like I wasn't good enough on my own? And really be honest with yourself on your first memory of that. And don't be afraid to dig deep. The next question that I would like you to ask yourself is, where do I try to prove my worth through action or through perfection? A lot of times we don't even realize that we're trying to prove our worth to others. But this is a good time to really stop and reflect on if you are doing it, why, and in what ways. Now, the last question that I would like you to ask yourself is, what would it look like to love and accept myself exactly as I am? And this is really going to take some Michael Jackson man in the mirror type of energy right here. You have to be honest with yourself about who you really are. Not for who you think the world wants you to be, but for who you really are. And it doesn't matter if others accept you or not. How would you accept you? Now, if you haven't had an opportunity to look at your chart, now would be a good time to check where Chiron sits in your chart and what house. I'm going to briefly go through each of the houses to kind of show you or kind of give you a little insight on how this would play out for you based on the house that your Chiron sits in. Now, of course, if your Chiron is in the first house, this retrograde is hitting you like nobody's business, okay? I feel bad for you almost. You're probably dealing with a lot of deep insecurities right now on how others are seeing you. You're probably struggling with a lot of confidence and visibility and how you are overall asserting yourself right now. Now, during this retrograde phase, this is a time for you to intensely self reflect. This is the perfect time for you to redefine how you want to be seen. And notice how I said you want to be seen and not how you feel like others want to see you. What you are meant to learn during this time is to not perform. You are enough just as you are, and you don't need to change your identity for anybody. Find the comfort with being yourself, and others will have no choice but to be comfortable with it as well. Now, Chiron in the second house deals with the wound of worth and security. You probably experienced a lot of pain around money, value, and just overall self esteem. During this time, it's probably bringing up some unworthiness for you, or you probably been stressing out about your stability during this time. The T on this placement is it has everything to do with your self worth. When your self worth is strong, your security is strong, and your financial abundance is strong. Okay. So during this time, you want to reevaluate your self worth and make sure that you are truly focused on what makes you feel secure, which should be your security and how you feel about yourself. This is going to be a time for you of building self trust and knowing your value isn't tied to your income or the things that you have. Now, next up is Chiron in the third house, which is the wound of voice or communication. This deals with the fear of being misunderstood or feeling like you were silenced. This can come from wounds from siblings or early education or just speaking out. Early on, you were probably hushed or made to feel like your voice wasn't good enough or just wasn't heard. During this time, it's probably stirring up a lot of old conversations that you've had, things that you wish you would have said that you didn't. You're probably feeling that pressure. You've probably even cracked open some of your writing journals if you have some, just to revisit some feelings. During this time, it's going to be important that you find your authentic voice and start trusting your words. Know that your voice matters and know that how you express yourself matters. Don't let nobody shush you. Huh. Your voice deserves to be heard. But you have to know that first before anybody else can know that, okay? Now, next, we're getting into the fourth house. Now, this is the wound of home and family and overall ancestral roots. This is the wound of parental neglect, typically from the nurturing side of things, like the mother side mostly, or just overall instability of the home growing up. With this placement, a lot of times you may feel disconnected from your roots or may feel unsafe just being vulnerable all overall. This retrograde is probably stirring up a lot of old wounds from you from when you were a child and just overall how you grew up. With this placement, you definitely require reparenting of yourself and doing a lot of inner child work. Your healing comes from being able to learn how to nurture yourself, and that way you're able to create emotional safety within. You just have to know that it's okay to feel things and that your feelings do matter. So make sure that they get addressed so that inner child can be heard, okay? Next, we're diving into the fifth house. Now, the fifth house deals with the wound of creativity and recognition. This is the wound of being too much or just not feeling good enough to shine. This is another painful wound that's rooted around childhood and not feeling special. What this retrograde is probably stirring up for you is the need for applause and the need for other people's approval. This is definitely a time for you to explore what brings you joy. The healing comes in when you learn how to embrace the playfulness and expressing yourself without the fear of rejection. So basically, do not give a damn what other people got to say. And that's that. Now, when it comes to the sixth house, your wound is around service and perfection. You also can have a wound around health here. A lot of times, with your Chiron being in the sixth house, you have a hard time feeling appreciated for hard work or feeling like you're only valued when you're doing things for others. You might experience problems with chronic illnesses in with this placement as well. So this is a wound that is related around health and your daily routines. This can also strike up a wound around judgment and judging yourself harshly and being like extra hard on yourself with criticism. During this time, you're probably feeling swamped with your daily routines. This is a good time to really find balance, something that is healthy for you. And speaking of health, this also is a good time to look into your health and check what things that you can do daily for your overall health just to make your life just a little bit more comfortable, you know? With this placement, you're going to learn healing with not being hard on yourself, learning how to value yourself apart from what you do for others, and making sure that you maintain and take care of yourself, making self care a part of your daily routine. And stop being overcritical of yourself and figure out ways that you can learn how to appreciate yourself, flaws and all. Now, the next house is the seventh house. This is a wound around relationships with others and also self reflection. The seventh house is the mirror. And when your Chiron is in the seventh house, you experience the fear of abandonment and feeling unlovable. You also may be the type of person to lose yourself within relationships. With this placement, you typically attract partners who mirror your unhealed wounds. All of your relationships mirror the worst part of you, so you are literally learning through every single partner that you attract. During this time, I'm pretty sure you're revisiting your relationship patterns. You're also probably checking on how you show up in relationships. This is probably a time where you're really reviewing why you are attracting the type of partners that you are. Where the healing comes in with this placement is learning how to really pour love within yourself, understanding the type of love that you deserve so that you're able to create relationships where your identity is not diminished but supported. You have to know that you are just as valuable in that relationship as the other person, and you don't have to let yourself go in order for someone else to stay. Pouring yourself into someone else completely and not being able to get that within yourself will leave you in relationships where you constantly feel depleted. And I don't want that for you, Bookie Butts, so stop doing that. Now, moving on to the eighth house, where we're dealing with the wound of intimacy and loss of power. Now, this placement is typically really difficult and deals with wounds around sexual trauma, around trust issues, and also shared resources. With this placement, there is a big fear around being vulnerable. With this placement, you also probably have a lot of secrets that you are afraid of being exposed. Being exposed is like a deep fear of yours. You are the type that everything that has ever happened to you that you don't trust it to tell anyone will definitely go to the grave with you. Like, you're not going to share that information with anyone. So during this time, you're probably experiencing some deep dark shadows that are appearing. You're probably reflecting on a lot of the transformations that you've had to make throughout your life and some of the deep emotional scars that you've had to deal with throughout your life. So, definitely, this is a great time to do some shadow work. Facing those wounds with courage is the best way to reclaim your power. And that's where the healing begins, when you reclaim your power so that you're able to experience deep, authentic connections with others. Don't be afraid to be seen for who you really are. Don't be ashamed of your past. And know that you are not the things that have happened to you. You don't have to hide in the dark. Really turn that pain into power. Now, moving on to the ninth house. The ninth house deals with the wound of belief and freedom. This brings about a feeling of your truth or your belief systems being rejected or mocked somehow. You often feel like the outsider or somehow culturally shamed for being who you are. With this placement, you find yourself being scared to think outside of the box because every time you've been told that it's stupid or somehow feel rejected in some type of way. Right now, you're probably revisiting that, and you're honestly probably going through some type of spiritual awakening. Some of those belief systems that you have been scared to share are probably like coming up for you heavy around this time. With this placement, you'll find healing when you learn how to trust your truth and allowing yourself to explore freely, mind, body, and soul, without worrying about what others think or what someone might say. Don't be afraid to take that journey. You experience limitations when you limit yourself. No one else is in control of that but you. So, the next house we're going to talk about is the 10th house in Chiron. This is the wound of success, visibility, and how you're seen publicly. With this placement, you typically have a feel of failure or just not being enough. A lot of times you may feel like things that you do get unrecognized, or you feel like you have to put on a persona in public. During this time, you're probably reassessing all of this. You're not only thinking about your goals as far as your career, but how the world sees you overall. This is probably bringing up times where you have minimized yourself or maybe even self sabotaged. Healing comes in with knowing that you're worthy of success, not based on what you do, but for who you are. Knowing that you're worth the recognition and being proud of yourself for all of the things that you've accomplished. It's okay to embrace success. Let's check those areas where you might self sabotage. Check those patterns and rewire it. Because we're not doing that over here, okay? Now, the next placement that I want to talk about is the 11th house. The 11th house is the wound of belonging and community. This is the house of friends and just being your unique self. This is also the house of the rebel. So often people with this placement, they feel like they don't fit in anywhere. They often feel like they get excluded from groups, and they often struggle with maintaining friendships. This placement also comes with a lot of betrayal when it comes to friends. You've often been criticized for being your unique self, which makes you scared to challenge things. This is probably bringing up for you a lot of reflection on friendships and just healing overall social wounds. Healing with this placement comes with just accepting your unique self without a care of what anybody else says. Once you accept yourself fully, others will have no choice but to do it too. And you'll naturally attract your soul tribe that is meant to just be there for you. Now, the last house I want to talk about is the 12th house, which is the wound of unseen and the subconscious. Now, this pain is kind of hard for you to explain because it lives deep in your psyche. A lot of the trauma from this placement comes from past life karmic patterns and suppressed trauma. So it kind of brings about like a whole variety of overall different experiences that you've probably had in your life. It's not an easy placement to have it all. During this time, you're probably reviewing a lot of those karmic patterns, rethinking a lot of those traumatic situations. This is going to be a great time to do shadow work. You'll probably need a little bit of solitude, and getting you a dream journal would be great. Some type of spiritual release, yeah, you'll need it. Doing these things will give you an inner peace that you never know you needed, that inner peace that you deserve. Now, with that being said, Cosmic Cousins, I've made this video far longer than what I had originally anticipated. But I feel like the information and the tea that I spilled was necessary to help get you through this time. Now, go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already so you don't miss any of this cosmic tea that I have to sip with you, okay?